Well, following the 25th anniversary of Final Fantasy IX, it looks like this remake project may be in trouble. More specifically, it looks like we have to prepare for the unfortunate truth that this project may have been canned in development. Now, I know we were all excited to hear some remake news on its 25th anniversary. You know, having all of that new art and, all that merch coming out day after day leading up to July 7th. But it looks like they're either not ready to show this remake, or, the topic of today's video, there is that possibility that, this project was just cancelled. So of course, before we get into it, do not forget to like the video and subscribe to keep up to anything JRPG or gaming related in the future. And with that, let's get into it. Now, this comes from very reputable and reliable source Nate the Hate on Reset Era. He gives us an update on the development of Final Fantasy IX Remake. As it says here, quote, "As of last check, it remains in development to my knowledge. But I need to do a fresh check and see what a more current status is, as I did hear a month or so ago that it was in trouble and possibly cancelled. I only had one source on the cancellation possibility and need to verify the info further." So, I think this post does shed some light on the possibility of a cancellation, but Nate the Hate does say that this thing is still in development to his knowledge. Of course, like Nate the Hate said, this comes from just one source that does point to the possibility that, the development of this game was facing some problems. And honestly, I would not be surprised if this FF9 remake was cancelled behind the scenes, because let's face it, we haven't gotten really any official confirmation. We haven't really seen anything about this game, and it's been, 3 to 4 years since the Nvidia Leak listings for FF9 remake. And this is really the last game on that list that needs that confirmation that it is still coming out. And it's because of this possibility of a cancellation that Twitter has just been in a storm. People acting like they never thought this remake was real. People getting made fun of because they chose to believe that this game was in development, which is odd because this game was in development. Like, there's no denying that. You cannot ignore all of the leaks, including that of the Nvidia Leak listings. Very credible industry insiders saying that multiple sources have claimed that this remake project is a real development in-house. Not to mention the database leaks. I mean, database leaks. You do not get these types of leaks unless a game is very real and is far in development. So again, to believe that this game was not in development, and ignoring all of those leaks, all of that information, all of the industry insiders, to me, that's just extremely ignorant to think. Not to mention that the Nvidia Leak listings, literally all of those games on that list were either confirmed. I mean, most of them were confirmed and came out already, or are coming out, like Final Fantasy Tactics Remastered, and like maybe one of them was canceled, but the rest of them were, turned out to be true. And now the last game on that list, Final Fantasy IX Remake, is the only one that we need official confirmation for. If we do look at the possibility that this project is canned, it has been canned for a while maybe, then in my opinion, I think the reason why that is simply because, Square Enix has a bunch of stuff going on internally right now when it comes to the 3-year reboot plan, and it's because of this shift that obviously we heard that a bunch of projects internally in-house at Square Enix were cancelled. And it would really not be surprising if one of those projects was the Final Fantasy IX remake. And this 3-year reboot plan at Square Enix is for them to focus more on quality rather than quantity, and really pushing forward, really putting all of their resources into making sure that their major mainline titles, their flagship titles, are developed with more consistency and more quality in mind. So it could be a possibility that this remake project was just one of those games that were collateral because of this major shift. Another reason for this could simply be because of money and wanting to put those resources into their bigger games, into their flagship titles that are still coming out. Obviously you have Kingdom Hearts 4, you have Dragon Quest, and of course Final Fantasy 17 and Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. You know, all of these games are still coming out, and Square Enix obviously has to make sure that these things hit and are a big success. But in my opinion, the way I see it, I think having a Final Fantasy IX Remake could be really good for the series, for the franchise in general. Especially, you know, I talked about this in my last video, but if we were to get a more one-to-one remake of Final Fantasy IX, that could be huge for both the fans of Final Fantasy as well as the franchise. It would be honestly so great to have the series bring one game back to its roots, right? To finally have a Final Fantasy just bite the bullet and say, you know what, let's just backtrack a little and bridge the gap between those older fans who are maybe burnt out by the modern Final Fantasy games and those fans who, you know, are new to Final Fantasy but don't want to go back to the older games because they're too, you know, outdated maybe, or just, you know, they can't get into them for some reason. A more updated version of Final Fantasy IX that does follow in the roots of that more classic Final Fantasy formula, and it could honestly be a really great step for the series, to where we can have a more constant stream of remake games that are more, you know, ideally one-to-one to the original, while at the same time having those mainline games keep doing what they're doing with the modern action style, maybe following suit with Final Fantasy VII Remake's more hybrid action approach. I've said this in my past videos so many times, but I just love how Resident Evil does their releases and how you'll have a constant stream of both remakes and mainline games, and every time it is at a quality that fans can always expect. When it comes to gameplay, when it comes to game design in general, it is something that we can all love and expect every single time. And I think, again, that could be what Final Fantasy IX Remake could be. It could be the start of the series just taking these older games and just remaking them more one-to-one to what people can expect, while continuing their hybrid action approach for the mainline games. But as of now, Nate the Hate is not confirming or denying anything. And I think, you know, people on Twitter love to jump to conclusions saying that, oh yeah, oh, it's finally done, we're not getting a Final Fantasy IX remake, oh, I never believed in it anyway. I think people just really need to calm down and just wait for actual confirmation from one of these credible leakers that, yeah, this thing just is not happening. Anyways, tell me what you guys think down below. Do you think this Final Fantasy IX remake was quietly canned behind the scenes, or do you think that maybe it is still in development, but maybe it just has some trouble going on behind the scenes, or, you know, maybe because of the internal shakeups over at Square Enix, that maybe it's just slowed down the project to a halt? Tell me all of that and more down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one.